and less partisan. I think what President Trump has done is really just absolutely taken our courts and tried to upend them. First, he attacked our judges and tried to undermine the independence of the judiciary. Then he appointed two radical, ultra-conservative justices to the Supreme Court, and he's continued to pack the court. So I'm going to think about that solution. I'm also going to think about another one that's been raised, whether you have judicial term limits. That might be another solution for the Supreme Court, possibly. But I need to think about what will do the most to prevent the politicization maybe, of the Supreme Court, because I think it's very damaging to our democracy. Our justices were never intended to be political. So I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to, if I'm president, I will definitely consider it.
Senator, thank you for coming to Derry today. In regards to the term limits for the Supreme Court, the American people are really frustrated with Congress, and especially seeing the corruption, career politicians there for decades.
Yeah.
President Obama, he had said that term limits would be useful in that it would allow new people to introduce fresh ideas. And there was a recent poll where 82% of Americans want term limits for Congress. Would you support term limits for Congress finally on behalf of the American people?
I do support term limits, and the reason I do is the reason you stated. I think there's so much corruption in Washington. Everyone here knows Washington's broken. We all know it. Voters know it. It's why we don't have as high of a voter turnout as we should, because people say things like, my vote doesn't matter. Everyone's corrupt anyway. They're all the same. It's true. It's how people feel. And so I have a couple solutions to address it. I think term limits is one, and I don't know exactly what term limit's the best one. I don't know if you should let senators be there for 12 years maybe, and House members be there for 12 years maybe. I'm not sure what the right number is, but it's something we could look at, study, and figure out and make a proposal. I know it works in places in New York State when we have them. We have a couple places that have term limits. New York City does, and it works well to create a constant flow of new people, new energy. And some seniority is useful because you know what you're doing, so you don't make stupid mistakes every time over and over again. The thing about wisdom is it means you've made every mistake at least once. Do you know that? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, other ways to fix our democracy. I think getting money out of politics has to be the #1 priority. And the reason I say this, and I agree with that, the reason I say this is because we know that if you have a lot of money, if you're ultra wealthy or a big company, you can spend millions of dollars amplifying your voice. Millions of dollars on television ads that have no disclosure, so people don't even know who's running them. So you got to get money out of politics, and I think the best way to do that is to start by having publicly financed elections. And the way I've written my legislation is really simple. If you're willing to accept publicly funded elections, you won't take a campaign contribution over $200. And every American will have access to $200 to invest in each campaign. $200 to invest in a presidential race, $200 to invest in your local House race, $200 to invest in your Senate race. That would allow you to raise money from everyone, not just the elite of the elite, the wealthy of the wealthy. You would raise money from the people on your block. You'd raise money from the people in your building. You'd raise money from people in public housing. You'd raise money from the people at the community center or at the senior center. You would ask people not only for their vote, but for their support. And it would democratize democracy immediately. That would be the first thing to do to change the players list #1, and then you should be able to get money out of politics. I would do that. I would change our voting rights, because right now we have Republican legislatures all across America that are working really hard to undermine voting rights. So Election Day should be a national holiday. We should have early voting in all 50 states. We should have vote by mail in all states. We should make sure we don't have these very challenging voter ID laws. I mean, you have one here in New Hampshire. The fact that your governor wants to disenfranchise your students, it's outrageous. But that's what legislators and governors are doing all across the country to make it harder for people to vote. So I would take on all of this to restore our democracy to the hands of the people. And I'd also really encourage members of Congress to get home to their districts, to do town halls. I would do town halls in any state where those senators wouldn't do the town halls. I would show up and do it for them, because that's the truth. You really want to push people back into their home districts, into their communities, So they actually represent the will of the people they represent, not the people with fancy lobbyists, not with the people who can fly to Washington. It's truly the people that you are supposed to be representing, of your district, of your state, or of your country.
Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead.